Welcome to the All Around Joe podcast, where we optimize your healing performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around self-improvement junkie. On this edition of the All Around Joe podcast, I'm going to be talking with Rowan Minnion, the CEO and founder of Blonyx. Rowan is not only a very interesting guy, but he has a lot of thought that he puts into the creation of his products at Blonyx, and he just has a really cool lifestyle. So in this podcast, we get into all of that stuff, and we actually had so much to talk about that we're going to do a follow-up podcast in a few weeks. So I recommend that you check this out, whether you've taken Blonyx or not in the past, because it is just a fun, great podcast with Rowan Minnion. This podcast is brought to you by the Get Better Project, which is my online at-home daily workout program that is designed for people to get amazing results with only a couple of dumbbells or no weights at all. If you're interested in a program like this, we would love to work with you, and you can get started today by going to thegetbetterproject.com/getbetter. If you have any questions about that, let me know. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into this podcast with Rowan Minnion of Blonyx. We'll see you on the flip side. Hey, Rowan, how's it going today, man?
Very cool, Joe. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to do this. You were one of my very first interviews way back when I started this podcast, like 200 and something episodes ago. So first off, thank you so much for taking a chance with me back then.
Of course, absolutely. And it's great to hear that you've come so far. 200 episodes. It's amazing.
Yeah, we're going to be like 200 and this will be like 241, I believe. Something around there.
Fantastic.
A lot of them. A lot of stuff to say. But man, I would like to just jump right in because I'm sure that we're going to have a whole bunch to talk about today. And if you could start us off by briefly giving us your backstory and how that led you to, fitness and snowboarding and Blonyx and I mean, basically elaborate as much as you want to, because I think that, we can go ahead and go over anything that we did or didn't last time, and it will be great content. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as you're obviously traveling in a van right now, and right now in one of my favorite places in Jackson Hole there, I can focus on that because snowboarding has had a really great kind of meditative place in my life throughout my studying, my career, and definitely as an entrepreneur as well. I think you need your downtime, and it provides me with that. So my background, I'm an exercise physiologist by training, and I studied that in Glasgow in Scotland. And as part of that, I was shipped off to the US to go to Iowa State on a work placement. And this is actually when I started snowboarding. So I did some research there. And I also got onto the snowboard team there, and we did bordercross, a snowboard racing. And it was really my first venture into snowboarding. I was a skier up until that time, and started snowboarding and really kind of started to really have this athletic passion, because we were racing. So we would do a lot of training for that then too. And also I was a soccer player. I played at Iowa State University. So I had a lot of training. I was actually the kind of one of the highlights of my athletic career while I was there. And it was actually the foundation of my company I now run, Blonyx, was being there. So part of the research I did there was to investigate dietary supplements for strength and muscle mass gains. And it's actually we put together a study, and it's published in the Journal of Applied Physiology. And at the time, we surveyed all the research, and we found that only two ingredients out there had enough research to actually show that they worked and were safe to take. And those two ingredients were HMB and creatine monohydrate. And as you know, those are two ingredients that we sell. That's our primary product, is the combination of the two. And the first thing I did as an athlete and a snowboarder was actually to go straight down to the local GNC to try and find these products. And I'd done my research on them. And I walked in, and I was faced with a wall of hundreds and hundreds of products, as you are in the GNCs. And this is me armed with all the knowledge that I just acquired from doing my research. And I looked around and started looking at the ingredients and said, I've never heard of these ingredients. And I've surveyed the research. There can't be research on these. So that was like the foundation of Blonyx right there, because I kind of came away scratching my head and saying, I can't believe that all of these companies are selling products that have no testing and nothing backing them. I kind of came away thinking, well, I have real athletic ambition. I'm a snowboarder racing, and I'm also playing soccer at a good level. I'm just looking for products that will work, and I really want to trust the brand. And kind of that day, Blonyx didn't start until 2011. So a number of years later, it's probably 10 years after that. But that day is when I really felt like it's not right that all of these brands are selling products that don't have any research behind them. I wish there was a brand that did that only had products that had that research behind them. And that's exactly the concept of Blonyx. That's why I started the company. It's kind of creating that brand that I wish existed and brought that through. So that's kind of jumping forward to Blonyx. But in the intermediate, so I did that work at Iowa State. And then I went back to the UK, and I somehow shifted into sleep medicine. So I moved down to London and got involved with a sleep lab down there, being a physiologist. And we started to run studies. I started to run these sleep labs. And we were running studies on people that had different cases of sleep apnea. But we also did work on normal humans and trying to understand sleep. Sleep is still something that we really don't understand. And so I had a couple of years down there doing that, and I was actually pursuing a PhD at the time. And this is where snowboarding comes back into my life again. I got to the point where, being very academic, I had that commercial mind. I always loved research and thinking about products and how we can turn the research into something that helps people's lives. So I got up one day, it was after a full night of running sleep labs, and I just walked into my boss's office and I said, I can't do this anymore. I quit. And I didn't know what I was going to do and where I was going to go. And what do you do in that scenario, Joe? I went straight off and I became a ski bum. I lived in Breckenridge, Colorado for a season. Have you been there? Have you passed through there?
We haven't yet, mostly because we have the Icon Pass and it's not on our pass, but
Right.
We've been very close. We've been to Copper and Eldora and all of those I-70 places, but we haven't been to Breck yet.
Hey, Copper is close enough. It's very similar. I love Copper. It's a fantastic mountain. So that was the first time snowboarding there. And then after that, I kind of got into business and I started a marketing company and kind of got my taster of entrepreneurship. But that was in Scotland. And again, we got hit pretty hard. The 2005 recession hit us pretty hard, and we lost a lot of our clients because a lot of them went under or had financial issues. And again, I did the same thing. That's actually how I live in Canada now. I one day, me and my business partner were there, and we just lost our biggest client. It was about 40% of our business. And, I turned to him and I said, I think it's time I went snowboarding again. So that was it. I got up and I moved to Whistler and it was the Olympic year up in Whistler. And I spent the season up there, and it was fantastic. And that's how I'm here today in Vancouver, BC. I gradually moved down from Whistler when I kind of went through my phase of snowboarding, got it out of my system, and moved back down to Vancouver, where I actually finally founded that company that I wished existed, that brand, Blonyx, which is what it is today.
Wow.
Quite the journey.
I had no idea that there was this snowboarding and ski bum side of you. Holy
Absolutely.
smokes.
Absolutely. I kind of feel like it's in a lot of us.
Yep.
That desire. I look at what you're doing right now, and it's a big fantasy of mine. It's like you've done exactly what I wish I did. Now I've got the company and I've got those responsibilities, but a big part of my spirit, I think, lives with you right now.
Oh man. Well, I can only say that I'm so happy to hear that you've done that, because I keep telling people that it is just like this amazing experience that it's meditative, like you said, when you're on the mountain, but then there's also something special about being there for the whole winter and experiencing that. It's different. And I'm still trying to figure out how to explain it in words, but it's definitely magical.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's becoming one with the ski kind of community.
Hmm.
Definitely, there's a like a twinkle in your eye or something like that, that when you're up in the mountains and you're there for a while, and I think the locals see it. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm sure you experience this where you get to know a lot of people at the mountains. Just by being, they see you a lot more frequently. I
Yeah.
think that. On the physiological side of it, this is the physiologist in me too. I found that every time I snowboard, it takes about 2 weeks of snowboarding regularly to start to really see improvements.
Okay.
After, I feel like the first couple of weeks, it's almost like it's like at the beginning of the season too. But if you're doing it pretty much every day, after the 2 week period, I think it's a combination of just adjusting to the altitude a little bit. You don't
Hmm.
get the lactate buildup that you can get from the low oxygen pressures.
Yeah.
And then the second one being just your muscle memory and adaptation to it. Or I always found that 2 weeks into the season, and that's after that is when I start to really improve the quality of my riding.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that that's a really interesting part of doing something for like snowboarding for the whole season is that there are these days that are just like perfect, for lack of a better word. And then there's days that are just terrible, or it's like you feel like you forgot how to do it. And it's like this constant like learning and your body figuring out how to adjust to different conditions and whether you're riding different gear or not. And it's just, I love it. I love every part of it. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, when you were riding, because I have these times when I'm like, I'm in the zone, if you will,
Hmm.
or in flow state. And I get them when I'm snowboarding. I get them when I'm running long distances and sometimes in a hard workout, but not so much. It's usually like this longer sustained snowboard runs or going on a long trail run. And my brain becomes clear and I get these ideas. Did anything like that happen to you throughout, founding of Blonyx, or like have you had those experiences where you're in that zone or flow state and you get these ideas?
So I don't get them so much in flow state.
Okay.
I not so much then. I find that in that flow state, the flow state comes to me. I can picture in my mind every single time it hits.
Okay.
And interesting, I used to get them doing rails quite a bit when I would
Oh.
ride rails, and I really sometimes you would hit a rail and just everything would happen perfectly. Your balance would be perfect. You get over the rail, all this kind of stuff. And that was a really interesting one. And the other one is playing soccer as well. I find that there's sudden moments when my body goes on autopilot and I hit this amazing pass or shot or something like that. But what I did find with snowboarding a lot was this clarity that you
Mhm.
get, which was more of a general clarity. And I got it a lot when I went like hiking. If I would boot pack up a peak, which
Yeah.
I did that in Colorado quite a bit, and I now get that do quite a bit more backcountry here in BC, and it's up there when you're in that absolute stillness and quiet that you get when you're up in high in the mountains and on your own. I remember there's one specific time I kind of really wasn't sure what to do with my career. This is after my quitting the sleep labs.
Hmm.
And I hiked to the top of this ridge. It's Peak 6, which I now think has got a lift up to it. Like this is in Breckenridge. And I hiked up there. It took a while. And I had this pristine powder run in front of me, and I strapped on my board and I just sat there and I thought, this is quite a lot of powder and I'm not too sure on the terrain here. I'm just going to call a friend and let her know where I am, just in case, something happens to me. And I called her and let her know, and hung up the phone. And then suddenly I'm like, it's me now. And I suddenly got into this whole, what do I want to do with my life? Moment. It's really weird. It's like you're about to hit this super sick power run, and my head went straight to, what am I doing with my life? I had no idea why. But in that moment, I kind of got in tune with the real things that energize you and make you who you are, kind of thing. And the two things I came up with were that I love meeting new people and building new relationships frequently and on a regular basis. And the second one is I need to be doing different things all the time. I can't do the same thing again and again and again. And that was actually the start of my kind of career in marketing that I took on after that. Started at that point at the top of Peak 6 in Breckenridge there, and through that clarity that I had. So, in terms of this meditative state that I think that brings snowboarding to me, that was one of the pinnacles of that.
Very interesting. So I've got to ask you, because I'm super similar in that sense of like needing to do different things. And as an entrepreneur, that can be kind of hard because sometimes you need to keep doing the same thing over and over again until you get a result. How do you handle that with your company?
Great question. I think, being honest, I think systemizing as much as you can. So if you do start to see you need to do something again and again, it's the same thing. I think you need to start looking at, can I automate this? Mm-hmm. Can I automate this, or can I find someone else to do it? It's a good one. Sure. That second one is more, I think, as much my sanity as much as it is keeping you focused. If you are an entrepreneur, I think you need to keep focused on the future, what's going to happen going forward, what the numbers are. Understanding your business is a primary one. If you're too much in the doing, sometimes you don't have enough time to get your head up and look at those things. And I feel like when you do that, you've got to be honest with yourself. You're shifting from being an entrepreneur to being an employee, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's my approach to it. I do different things every day now, and it's been like that pretty much all the way through. And I mean, I'm an operations person. I really love operations and figuring out problems of moving product here and there and pricing and that kind of stuff. But a lot of that you can automate, and it's almost like one of the problems that you have as an entrepreneur is, how can I automate a lot of this stuff and make it happen so I can focus on the building?
Right. So let me ask you, how do you plan a week for yourself?
Good question. I do it with my team quite a bit. So we follow the Gazelle method, it's called, and I think a lot of people are familiar with EOS. It's the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a way to structure and manage and run your business, and it kind of brings everything together. So you have your vision, mission, and what you want your company to achieve, and you bring that all the way back down to your 10-year goal, 3-year, 1 year, and then 90 days. And then you break that down into what you're doing every week, and you kind of operationalize that. So we have that in place. We use a Gazelle method. It's called, it's a great kind of workflow workbook that you go through, and it kind of tells you all that stuff. And so we really kind of come back to that on a regular basis. And every Monday, I head up marketing still. So I'm the CEO of the company. I also lead marketing. But the heads of operations, finance, and sales, and then me in marketing, we get together with our teams and we review what is it that's from our big picture plan, is now down to what we're doing over this quarter. And then we break that down into weeks and what is it we want to achieve every week. Now, it doesn't always go to plan, obviously, and things come out of left field, but in general, that determines our week. So I start every Monday morning, we have department meetings to check on all of that. And I kind of have my to-do list and start to-do list from that. And then I meet with the senior team together, and we kind of report into each other and then adjust things. And if we need help from each other, we kind of add that to our to-do list too. So we have quite the system around it, which really helps out a lot. Now, it's not a perfect system. I think it's impossible to find that perfect system, but it's at least good. Ensures we're pushing towards that big goal that we have.
Sure. Do you find that gives your mind enough creative freedom to do these different things that you want, or does it still feel kind of confined for you?
Great question. Yeah, I think that's my biggest challenge. is that because we are big in execution mode as a company now. We have an egg white protein isolate that you've tried to that we're really fighting to get traction in the market on. So we're big into execution now, and I find that sometimes we have these periods of execution where we don't have that breathing space. It's and especially for me, it's I kind of go through it in my mind thinking, in 3 weeks time, 4 weeks time, I will have that 4 or 5 days where I can get my head up and breathing space and kind of figure it all out. And so there's a part of me that wants to think that way all the time and wants to, really focus on the business, where it's going, get that creative side. But I find that as the company's got bigger, I've needed to kind of compartmentalize that and go, plan out a week where I'm going to do that. And then it's adjust all the plans and everything, and then move again and kind of move on from there. Yeah.
Cool, man. I love talking about this entrepreneurial stuff and the business building and all of it. So I'm incredibly fascinated by that. But let's step back real quick to Blonyx and why you talked about the HMB plus creatine. I know that you also have the beta alanine, you have the egg white protein powder, which, just so that I can, everybody hears me talk about Blonyx all the time, but Blonyx is one of the few companies that I think it may be the only company that I've taken your product for so many years, and anytime that I vary from it, I always come back to it because it simply it works. They're high quality products, and I have no problem telling anybody that and promoting Blonyx as much as possible. But I'd love to hear again from you maybe even like the elevator pitch for Blonyx, and then the product lineup, and then why you chose those particular products, even if you want to elaborate more on the creatine and HMB as well.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, firstly, thanks for being a regular customer of ours. Without you guys, it wouldn't be what it is today, kind of thing. As a company, and as I said before, that the company was really built around me and what I was looking for in a supplement brand. Mm-hmm. Being an athlete, as a soccer player, I had this athletic ambition, and I see it in so many people. It was a real. I spent so much time training, to get my fitness to where it was, to get my skills and abilities to where they were. It was such an important part of my life, and it still is. I do a lot of mountain biking, snowboarding, and play soccer still, although I'm continually injured, and CrossFit as well. And these are the 4 things in my life that are my almost like my reason for living. I love them. I'm not happy unless I do that. My wife always tells me if I'm in a bad mood, she says, go and do the sport that you want to do right now. That's how to get you out of that kind of thing. And I'm not the only person like this. And I think it's anybody from somebody who has who's running a 5K, for the first time in their lives, to someone who's doing their first Ironman triathlon. Having that athletic ambition is so important to people. And personally important. Everyone's got their different journey. And us as a supplement brand or as a sports nutrition brand, we need to respect that and say we are actually really important to these people. And every time they invest in our products, they're trusting us to help them. And that's why I think it's really important. And I think for me, the 99% of the sports nutrition market out there is intent on making money. And they make money over before caring about the customers they have. So as a brand, our strapline is sports nutrition that puts you first, with the first place, but also putting the customer and these people with athletic ambition, putting them at the heart of our organization, because everything we do is about them. And that's the story of our brand. That's why we exist and do it. And it's why we only have 4 products. You read out the product line in one breath there, which is very unusual for a supplement brand. Yep. And we will only bring out products that have that scientific backing on it. The only sidestep from that has been the protein, and the protein is. I think protein in the diet is very important, especially if you are going at the end of you're an ultra runner or an Ironman triathlon, you are going to have a hard time getting the calories in your system. And it's important that you get the right calories and right, and not rely entirely on carbohydrates and things like that. So I wanted to create a great way of getting a very high quality food protein, as little processing as possible into your system, with as few ingredients as possible. And also it just tastes as good as it possibly can, so that you will actually drink it on a regular basis.
Yep.
And that's it. And I looked for years for this, and I always thought that the protein market doesn't make sense to me. It's highly processed. Whey protein is very highly processed, which is why a lot of people have stomach issues with it. Obviously there's allergens, it being a milk protein. And then someone said to me the other day, they said, about 30% of people have an allergy to whey protein, and about 100% of people don't like the taste of plant-based protein.
Yeah.
And that's the issue with the plant protein market. Purifying proteins from plants is a very chemically intensive process, and it tastes like crap as well. So there's a lot of masking going on. I don't feel like that market has solved that issue just yet, So I think there is this room for a very clean, simple, unprocessed protein source that's real food, and that's where egg whites come into it. So that product was, I'm really happy with it. I think it's fantastic. It's not perfect. And the reason I wanted to bring it to market is to start getting feedback from people to say, how could we make this perfect? Sure. And I think a vanilla product will come, and then an unflavored version will come as a result of that. And again, putting our customers first. But yeah, it's just a filtering technology that we use to filter all the sulfur out of egg whites, and that's pretty much it. It's I recommend you try it. It's definitely a step. It's a step up in it's a big step up in egg proteins. There's nothing like it on the market. We're the only company with an isolate on the market using this technology. But I think it's a real option for people who don't like the whey or can't eat it, and then who don't like the taste of the plant-based there. So yeah, that's the egg protein. Our other products, as you know, you can talk to them as well as I can, having used them for so long. Very much performance focused. They're all great products for slightly different reasons. And the HMB creatine it's about the experience. What do we want to give to people? We want to give them strength and power. That's ultimately what we want to do there. It's a product that you take, and when you do take it, the thing you will experience, which is your ultimate goal, is an increase in that strength and power in your training. The beta-alanine, it's much more the muscular endurance. So anything like a sprint row, anything like that, you're not going to feel that lactic acid buildup, and you'll simply be able to get more out of your body by doing that. I think it's great for team sports, anything like that. CrossFit, it's absolutely fantastic, where we're lactic most of the time. And then my personal favorite is just the HMB. And the reason is because I'm an older adult now, and an older athlete. I'm getting mid-40s now, and I'm injured a lot, which is the first thing, and I'm also sore a lot from my training, and sorer than I used to be. I still train like I'm a 20-year-old. I think that's my big problem there.
Me too.
It's we pay for it here and there. And the HMB for me is something I have with my toothbrush, and I take it on a daily basis, and it slows down my muscle loss. So the natural muscle loss with aging, any inactivity, if I am injured, it will prevent that muscle loss from inactivity. So I return from injuries a lot quicker, and I'm less sore when I go back to training. I'm not as beat up, and I get more out of my training for that. And to me, that is my product. It suits me. I'm an all-round athlete, so I want that benefit sort of thing. And that's all we sell.
Interesting. So you got me very interested here. Do you take additional HMB to the HMB plus creatine, or are you just taking the HMB without the creatine?
Great question. We have 3 grams of HMB in there for both products, and the 3 grams a day is used in all the research studies. We stick with that. You'll get other HMB products on the market that will underdose, so 2 grams a day. please don't go with those guys. They're just trying to make money. Stick with 3 grams a day or thereabouts. But that's on an average body size. So there are situations where you might want to take additional HMB. One is if you are anything upwards of 190, 200 pounds in body weight. That's the first thing, and musculature as well. That would be muscle weight. That's one reason. And another reason is if your training volume is really high. If you are on a training cycle or a competition, maybe where you know that you're going to be, put your body under a lot of potential muscle damage, that's when you want to start increasing the amount of HMB just to make sure that you've got it there in the system. I would only do that intermittently. If I know that I'm coming up towards a competition or a couple of intense soccer training and match periods, I will start taking more.
Interesting. So for how long do you take the extended doses? Do you know if there's any research on that? I'm just curious because I just started training for a trail marathon, which is going to be in Leadville at 13,000 feet. So it's going to be pretty darn intense. And this sounds like something that I should be considering taking this extra HMB. So is there a period of time that you recommend going up to? Can I do it for my whole 3 to 4 month training cycle up to the event, or would you recommend up and down?
Yeah, I would go up and down. I don't think you need to take it for the whole training period. Okay. I'm guessing you would taper going into it. Mm-hmm. Right. It's a taper before the event. So if you're tapering your training going towards it, as you tapered, I would start to increase my dose then. Okay. So as you taper your training coming into it, start taking those. So your blood levels and your muscle levels of HMB start to come up. Okay. So they'll be high for when you're actually at the event and doing that. But also any times when your training is getting intense, I would just think, what's it going to be like over this next few days? I'm just going to add an extra capsule or two of HMB around it and do it that way. But definitely at the competition, I would make sure I had enough in my system then as well.
Okay, cool stuff. And do you have to take it proactively, or could you take it retroactively when you're like, man, that training day was way harder than I expected? Would it still be helpful if I took it afterwards?
I think so. I'm not quite as helpful, as like preempting and increasing your dosage before that, I would say. But to be honest, the differences are going to be small and difficult to notice. One thing that I will say about general with our supplements as a bit of a disclaimer is, that you've got to see them. Sports nutrition is very much like other general nutrition, and it's a nutritional supplements or a nutritional adjustment. So you've got to see them like that. They're not like steroids where you could see huge pharmacologically induced changes that happen pretty quickly. With a nutritional adjustment to the diet, they do take time. So with taking HMB, you think it's going to make those small differences when you're taking it to improve your performance, reduce your soreness, that kind of thing. It's just a slight adjustment and improvement. You really benefit over that long time of taking these things consistently. And it's just like eating. You don't just having one good clean meal doesn't change all that much. It's got to be something that's consistently done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly hope that the people that are listening to the podcast here have their nutrition in check and are keeping track of it and all that stuff. And, they understand that we're talking about trying to get the most out of our bodies and doing all that we can. So absolutely. That's where I'm coming from. Definitely. I'd love to dig in a little bit more to the egg white protein powder and how you decided to go with the egg whites, and was it similar to the same idea as with HMB plus creatine, which had the most research, or was it around something like amino acid structures? Or basically, I just want to hear more about this particular product.
I think, firstly, there's an interesting story how I discovered it, because I kind of stepped away from the protein market. I felt that it's very well serviced. There's a lot of companies out there that have protein products, and whey is a very high quality protein. It has all the amino acids in there. Plant based, I think, is still trying to figure that out, and blends, etc. But it's still a very saturated market. And so I avoided it. And I avoided it because I think there's a lot of companies making claims about protein that simply aren't true. Protein, and I will always say this, is a macronutrient. And so if you're getting it in your food in general, you won't necessarily benefit from having a big dose of it in addition to that. I think the only time it really comes in is if there's a potential for you to not be getting enough. And in those situations, I think pretty much any protein will actually do, to be honest. If it comes from real food, a steak or plants that you're eating, it's quite difficult to be protein deficient. So I initially stayed away from it for that reason. I was down in Vegas at a trade show, and fantastic trade show. It was more to do with new technologies and new ingredients that were coming out. And there was, over in a back corner, there was this scientist handing out these little cups and saying, "Try my egg white protein." And I tried it and I said, "This hasn't got any taste to it. There's no taste." And then he looked at me and said, "Exactly. We've got a no taste protein powder that's literally just egg whites. If you heat it up, it will turn into scrambled egg." Like this. And I left thinking, there's real potential for this. This is something, I think that the whole market has an issue with taste. These guys have not only solved that taste, but they've done it with something that is still a real food. It's not processed.
Right.
And that's where it started. It was quite the journey to do it. It's not a cheap product by any stretch of the imagination. We're still figuring out how to bring the price of the raw ingredient down on it, so we can start to, as an example, have organic free range eggs that we use. Right now, we can't do that because it would simply cost 5 times as much to do it, but we're working on getting it there. So we've still got ways to go. But yeah, that's kind of where it came from. It came from there. I guess, again, another disclaimer quickly is that we will not say on our marketing that this egg protein will improve your performance at all. It's just an insurance. It's just ensuring that you have a good quality diet, and that's why we have it there, and we're quite open about that in our packaging.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And how did you decide on the chocolate milk flavor, which it does taste like chocolate milk? So if anybody likes chocolate milk like I do, texture and flavor is just like it.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's we often at tastings we hand it out to people. You've got to be careful because we sometimes tell them it's chocolate milk, and if they're allergic to eggs, that might be an issue. So we do have a quick, but it is eggs, just to let you know. But people are blown away by that, the fact that it's just egg whites in this, and it tastes just like chocolate milk. There's no milk proteins in there, none of that stuff in there. So people are really surprised by that. We actually came to that conclusion. We did start doing some product development, and we were trying to use as fewer ingredients as possible. And with this, we just added cocoa, a little bit of organic cane sugar, and that was actually pretty much it. That's all we added. We added a little bit of sea salt to it, to fine tune the flavor. And we were in the office and all trying it, and this is like a really good Nesquik type chocolate. And then someone said, "This is chocolate milk. This is like my favorite chocolate milk that I have. It's exactly the same as that." And I think from a positioning point of view, it sets it to be different to all of the other chocolates that you get out there from whey protein and things like that. We didn't want to just be a chocolate, because then it makes the product normal. And this is not a normal product. So that's why we called it the chocolate milk. We have a vanilla that we're going to try and get it as close to vanilla bean as possible, because that to me is saying it's a little bit different to the other products that are out there.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff, guys. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Actually, since I live in a van, like we talked about before, I don't have a lot of space, and I have 1 to 2 bags of that sitting in my van. So if that tells you, if I like it or not, when space is so limited, I've got 10 t-shirts and 2 bags of Blonyx egg white protein powder.
I have an image of it up on your dashboard right now, just sitting up there.
Yep. Ready to go at all times. Where do you see your company going, and what are you excited about in that direction?
Great question. I think we have some plans. So one of the things that we want to do, and this goes with our our real love for athletic ambition and people, that how important that is for people. We don't see ourselves as a supplement brand. We are a sports nutrition brand. And so for us, we want to supply everything outside of 3 meals a day that you would have. And 2 products that we've actually developed them, and it's just a case of raising money, really, because we need to do big production runs and put this stuff in the warehouse, which costs a lot, and then there's the marketing cost on top of that to start getting traction. So once we have the egg white protein with real traction, it's getting there very quickly, which is fantastic. So it shouldn't be too long, and we're hoping on 2 products by the end of this year. The first one is a snack pack, and this is an idea I have. I tend to eat a lot of kind of snacks on the go kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I always wished there was an option of something that's like more real food as opposed to a bar. I get sick of bars and they all seem to be the same nowadays to me. So I wanted something that was a bit different. And we've come up with this concept, which is a snack pack. It has like a jerky in there and various kind of dried fruit and nuts and things like beet chips and stuff like that. And they're packs where they're all divided, so it's like separate compartments for each of the ingredients in there. But the primary thing is that we're creating 2 to 3 types, and they'll be focused on different athlete types. So one will be for power athletes, and it will have a higher protein content and a slightly higher fat content and a lower carb content. And then we have endurance types, which would be the other way. It'll be more kind of fat and carb focus like that. And they taste amazing. Imagine the best trail mix kind of product that you've ever had, with really high quality meat and really high quality dried fruit in there. It's a cut above, and we're just working on price point now, and we want it to be a premium top level product and speak to people who do have this athletic drive. So that's kind of where we're at with it. Yeah. So any investors or anyone who wants to help us bring this product out, listening to the show, then definitely get in touch with me. We're at that stage right now.
Yeah. And I could kind of like piggyback on that and say that is brilliant, because as somebody that is snacking as well and trying to be, depending on the season, a power or an endurance athlete, I'm trying to look for snacks that are thinking about what my goals are, and not mm-hmm. many of them are. So you have to piece a lot of these things together on your own. So brilliant. I mean, I hope that this ends up showing up in Whole Foods or wherever you envision it to show up, or, maybe it's just going to be online or whatnot. But because I live in a van, it's hard to get things shipped. I'm envisioning grabbing it at Whole Foods. So
absolutely. And I would love to see it there very soon. I think that will be probably one of our first channels that we go down to get it out there. So it fits very well, doesn't it, to that market? So
yeah, it does. And it seems like, why aren't people thinking about things in that sense? Like, when you go and look at the bars or the snacks, why aren't they thinking about what I'm trying to accomplish or you're trying to accomplish? It's more like, hey, we made this thing that we think tastes good, but it's got all this processed stuff in it to get to the point where we think it tastes good. Someone like you or I are just looking for high quality foods that we can get into our body that support our goals quickly.
Well, I think that last sentence there is, I'm going to coin that. That's exactly it. That's what you are looking for, Joe. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. And most of our customers that we talk to, that's what they're looking for. They say, I just want a product that does everything for me. I want the taste to be there, obviously, but I don't want to sacrifice the like you said, the processing and all the other stuff there. And the problem we have in sports nutrition now is that it's really easy to market and make the product look like it's for athletes. Yeah. A classic is Cliff Bar. I think it's Cliff Bars. It's called a Builder Bar. Yeah. And there's a picture of a guy kind of doing a pull-up on it. And you look at that and straight away you're like, that's marketed towards the fit, the kind of bodybuilding or gym workout kind of individual. And you start reading the ingredient list on that and the breakdown, you're like, this is a candy bar.
Yeah.
This is a candy bar. And the same with even Snickers and Mars are doing it now with a 20 grams of protein in every snack and a low sugar version. And I just think it's the wrong way. it's not the way we should do it. They're trying to convince this market that these are products that will help them. Whereas as soon as I look at the ingredient list, or anyone who knows what they're looking for, look at the ingredient list, it's completely the opposite. Yeah. So that's just doing that. Just my kind of, we will have succeeded as a company when people start picking up our products and never have to look at and kind of sift through the ingredient list or the nutrition facts label at the back. They simply go, I know that brand, and I know that if they say that's for a power athlete, it will have everything I need in there. I don't need to question it, and it will actually do what it says.
Wouldn't that be nice? I can't wait. I cannot wait. Well, as we're coming to the end here, I have a couple of fun questions I want to ask you, and I also would like to ask you, maybe we can come back and do another podcast on the whole sleep topic, because I think that we could probably fill a whole episode on that, if you would be down to do that at some point. Because
absolutely,
I think that I'm on the same page with you that how important sleep is, and I would love to learn from you on that topic. So selfishly, I'd 100% love to do it. Maybe we can do it, in a few weeks.
Absolutely. We'll talk straight after. We'll figure it out.
Sounds good. So fun questions. I feel like we've talked about snowboarding as being, one of your high list activities, but what is your favorite activity?
Right now, it is mountain biking. Oh. So mountain biking, I shifted over these last few years, and snowboarding was my life. Snowboarding and soccer was my life, the two. And over this last few years, I live in Vancouver, BC, which is it's a mountain biking mecca. There is nowhere on the planet that is as good as this area that we're in. And within an hour of 2 hours of my house, we Whistler Bike Park to Squamish trails to even in Washington, the trails there just across the border. Yeah. It's the fastest growing sport out there. There are more trails all the time. E-biking, as much as a lot of people don't like it, is coming into it, which is meaning it's accessed by more people. It's a really growing sport, and the community is great around it. So I'm totally in love with it right now. And this last couple of years, my biking has got a lot better. And it's like when you're my age and you start to find a new skill that you're learning, you'll take it when you can get it. It's that kind of thing. But yeah, that's something I absolutely love right now.
Oh, that's super cool. We actually bought mountain bikes a few months ago, and I hadn't been riding for a long time. So I'm also right there with you, where it's like you go out and ride for a few times, you're like, man, I'm getting better at this, and this is so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Super fun.
Cool. What's your favorite healthy meal, and what's your favorite not so healthy meal?
Ooh, great question. So in terms of healthy meal, it's actually it's like a shepherd's pie. I think they're actually called a cottage pie. So it would be like a good lean kind of hamburger meat like that, tons of veggies, and then sweet potato. This is the key. Sweet potato, carrot, and normal potatoes on the top. Boil them, mash them, layer it on top, and grill the top of it so it's brown. And it's tons of veggies. You get a good balance of carbs and protein in there, all real food. It's easy to make, and make a ton of it. It's great for meal prep. It's fantastic.
Sounds delicious. So do you bake that then?
Yeah, so I make it separately, just with the ground meat and the veggies. Just do all that in a pot. Okay. You can add I like to add Worcester sauce to it, and then and herbs and salt, pepper, that kind of thing. And the veggies will add the kind of the taste to it. So do that, and then layer that in a I guess like a baking dish kind of thing, or deep dish, and then put all the potato on top of it, and then kind of grill it. You can just broil it after that, grill it after that, and it will do the top, or you can actually put it in the oven too. That's another way of doing it. It depends. Some people like it. I like it a bit more watery, so I do it with the grill.
Yeah.
But do it in the oven if you want it dry. Yeah.
Delicious.
I'm ready for lunch now.
Yeah, me too. And how about your not so healthy favorite meal?
Man, I'm just a pizza fan. Or I'm
Mm.
all in on pizza. I'm not very sweet, kind of sweet tooth like that. But a good, really good, high quality pizza. And I hate to say it, but I'm in the pineapple camp. So, and a lot of people will frown on that. I know it kind of divides everybody I know when I say that. Um, but I'm very much like I like a big veggie pizza with pineapple on it, and I will plow through any size you give me like that, to the point where I'm in a bit of a kind of an insulin coma over in the corner at the end of it.
Oh man, yeah, we need to hang out sometime. We have a lot of the very similar things that we like to do and eat. So
Absolutely. When are you coming up here, Joe? Bring the van up. We'll go and hit some trails up here.
we actually are trying to figure out if we can or when we should do the Canada tour. So
You'll love it.
I will definitely keep you posted. You have to show me around the top BC pizza places too.
Absolutely. We'll do pizza and bikes. There you go, too.
Oh man, I can't wait. I cannot wait. We're gonna do it for sure. Let's see. Here's a good one. If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Great question. I think advice to my younger self would be risk it earlier.
Okay.
Because risk is something that if you want to go down the entrepreneurial path, risk is something you have to take, and you have to learn. It's not just taking the risk that will get you there. It's about learning how you deal with risk, and what is good risk and what isn't. And if you get to the point where you're later in life and you have a family to support and a lot more responsibilities, and then suddenly you start to try and learn then what you're like with risk or how you handle it or what is good risk, you can end up, you don't have as much of a safe environment to do that in.
Sure.
And I wish I'd done that earlier on in life, just thrown all my savings at something or just, quit that job or whatever it was to do that. And I think I would go back to myself and say, don't stop doing this thing. I know you're unhappy. Go and do this instead. And also take that savings account and put it into that crazy idea you have. It will probably fail, but it doesn't matter. The learning you have from that will take you further, way further. Yeah.
I love it. It's great advice. So in wrapping up, how can people find out more about Blonyx and or you or anything else that you're doing and would like to send people towards?
Absolutely. So for Blonyx, blonyx.com, blonyx.com. Check out our website. There's a lot of stuff on there. It's not just a store for our products. There's a lot of athlete education, really interesting articles on sleep, on improving your performance. We recently had an article on the coronavirus. Should you avoid the gym? What you should be doing about that? So we put all this kind of stuff out there, and it's up. We want to really educate the athletic community. It's part of what we do. We really believe in the athletic ambition side of things, and we want to support and be, create this community around us. So go to the website and check us out there. For me, if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'll be the only person with my name on there, Rowan Minion, last name Minnion, and you'll find me there.
Great. Well, I really enjoyed this, Rowan, and like I said, we'll talk in a few minutes about getting you back on real soon. And I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Joe. Good to talk to you.
That was my podcast with Rowan Minion of Blonyx. If you guys enjoyed that at all, we would love it if you would give us a review on iTunes by going to allaroundjoe.com/iTunes. And like we said on the podcast, we're going to have Rowan back on in a few weeks to talk about sleep, because he has been studying sleep for quite some time. And I believe that sleep is one of the major components that we are failing at as a population. So hopefully we'll have some tips and tricks for you, and you can get all of that information if you make sure and subscribe to the All Around Joe podcast so that we can get those podcasts to you as soon as they come out. Lastly, if you haven't done so already, check out the Get Better Project, our at-home online workout program designed to get you great results based off of the workouts that we are doing in our home gym/van here. driving around the country trying to avoid the virus. So if you guys want to check that out, go to thegetbetterproject.com/getbetter and we can get you started up today. And I didn't mention this, but it not only includes workouts, but we talk about your nutrition and we do weekly check-ins to make sure that everything is moving in the right direction. It's like having a personalized coach for not only fitness, health, and wellness, but also stress, sleep, all of that other fun stuff. So get started at thegetbetterproject.com/getbetter, and we will see you on the next podcast. The All Around Joe podcast, where we optimize your human performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around self-improvement junkie. We'll see you on the next podcast.